The distribution talk continues on today's episode of the Producer Podcast as we turn our attention to the realm of documentary distribution. To do that, we're welcoming back Tim Mahoney, producer of the Patterns of Evidence series, to discuss distributing both documentaries you make and documentaries other people make. So without further ado, let's get started. Maybe to start, catch us up what you've been up to, because I know last time we talked was right before you were releasing the first Churches of Revelation film in theaters. So, what have you been up to since then?
Yeah, the Seven Churches of Revelation came from filmmakers in France and Switzerland area, and they had actually seen our first film, Patterns of Evidence. This was on Netflix worldwide for it ended up being about 3 years. They saw this film, and that inspired them, Christoph Hanover, to basically go pursue the idea of doing the same kind of investigation. And he went to Turkey, to the Seven Churches of Revelation. And he made a series. He contacted me. So in a sense, what I was told was we inspired him to go out and make a series. And I suggested that I wasn't sure exactly how to sell a series, but I did know if we could make the series into a film. So we took the series and actually cut it into a feature film, which was last October. And this was taken out of 9 episodes. We made 2 feature films. First, the Times of Fire was in theaters nationwide as a Fathom event. And how does this help people? I think if you're an aspiring filmmaker, I think it's important to, if you have depending upon the type of content you have, is streamers like episodics. I find, but what you want to try to do is do both. Don't take that for gospel, because one day they'll want one thing and then they'll want something else. So having your film or your project able to be more than one thing is really helpful. So these 2 films here are both episodic and feature films. And I find we still sell physical goods. We still sell DVDs, Blu-rays. People think that no one buys that anymore. And I'm not saying that it won't change in the future, but right now people are still collecting and buying. Okay. And there's a lot of people who don't have great streaming services or don't want to pay the money for streaming services. So depending on who you are, what age you are, depends on how you're going to get content. But if you really want to save content, and the type of content that I'm making is more evergreen, and people that want it, they basically just want that, because I'm dealing with documentary, which is more historical about the Bible. Patterns of Evidence is our whole series, and so my films have tended to be evergreen, and people collect them. And since we've talked, we had 2 films out before. I think the last fall, we came out with another one. So just to refresh people, the first film I made was The Exodus. The second film was The Moses Controversy. And then we did Red Sea Miracle 1 and 2. And what we've done now is we've taken our films and we've made them into a series for television. And so That's what I think that people need to do, is think like that, to think, if I'm going to do this, where would I find cutting points to make it into to a series? And then this just recently, we brought out Journey to Mount Sinai is part 1, and we've got part 2 coming as well. So what's helpful? I remember listening to other filmmakers and other people who wanted to aspire to be a filmmaker. And how do you get here? And how do you, for me, it took a long time to figure out how to actually make a film. I just think that the process of telling a story is a process. The good news is that with the amazing quality that we have, when I was first starting out, we were shooting 16 millimeter film. And to buy the film was about $20 for 2.5 minutes. And then you had to get it processed, which was about another $20. But that $20 back then was a lot of money. I mean, the dollar went a lot further, so it was like more like $100. You could go to a movie for a couple bucks. I mean, things didn't cost like they cost today. So what did that mean is that if you shot some film, most people shot film that was negative, wasn't positive, you would have to then get it transferred and you have to look at it, and it was really expensive. You had to buy film cameras. The whole thing was, and there wasn't any sound connected to it, and so the value of now going and being able to shoot something, even with your camera, this is a Pro Max iPhone, it's got all these lenses. It's amazing. So I find that most people don't have as many encumbrances to making films as we did back when. And I had to make films that in the beginning that I had to fund myself, or to make a bigger film. One time when I first got started with this series of films, I went to a gravel pit because I couldn't go to Egypt. So I had to come up with a way to make it look like the desert. So I found this gravel pit that was just like all these sand piles and everything. And I built a tent that looked like a tent you would have in the desert. And I put a table out there, and I got a scientist who was studying the Bible and the archaeology of the Bible. And we filmed this great shot. We filmed it wide, we filmed him talking, and we built a demo to help me to raise money for my first film. And so sometimes you're going to have to do things like that. And I brought this along. Whenever you're trying to do something, you have to make it be believable. So I always create a movie poster or something in advance, so that it can be believable, or creating a brochure.
Right.
Whatever you can do to basically say, this is the story that I'm going to tell, So we created this from photography that we had, but I've learned long ago that the more you can create the idea of it, and then this is where, basically this was what we've done, that's there. So I'm explaining the idea of what this series is about. And then I'm saying, okay, here are the new films. So my point to any filmmaker, if you have a vision for a film, you need to basically cast that vision so other people can see it. That means coming up with, people writing a script, or people don't read scripts as much. They look at pictures more. If you can create the feeling of the movie by creating the trailer and creating all the concepts that you need to basically sell the idea of a film, then you can potentially start to get people in on the film, and they want to be a part of it. They believe in you or whatever. So the more credibility you can keep doing, and vision that you can keep doing. So that's why I will create a movie poster for something long before we get the movie, if I can. It might not be the finished movie poster, but as you do that, you start to create a vision for where the film is going to be going. And that's important for a filmmaker to be able to cast that vision.
For sure. So I guess seeing that kind of the brochure you're showing me there, one question I did have, because I was on a feature this fall, and one of the things they were doing throughout production was photo shoots with the cast, interviews with cast and crew and that. So are there things like that when you're filming a documentary you should be taking time to capture to use specifically for marketing the film?
Constantly. I mean, as much as you can, because those images are going to be what you're going to draw from. You'll probably need to do a lot of posting. I think the other thing too is that the marketing of a film begins almost from the very beginning of the idea of the film. Mm-hmm. And so you're marketing it. Who are you marketing it to? Well, you're marketing it to a cast, right? And you're marketing it to a crew. You're going to be marketing it to uh, supporters. You might be you're constantly selling this idea, and people love movies. So let's say you wanted to use a house that was an important location. You'd really want to have visuals and whatever store, whatever way you can to market the film to the people who rent the house, so that you would be able to make this all happen. All of that is the combination of all that marketing that's going on, and so that's basically what you're what we're doing there. That's really important, first of all. Number two is that you have a database. You need to basically get some place where you can get whether it's Constant Contact or we use different types. There's one called Keep, Keap, and it's a way to capture everybody, that you can tell them what's going on, and you give them updates with the film. You give them ongoing communication that what you're doing, and that's really, really an important piece to this. Is that you have to let people know that that have supported you or that and you continue to build that relationship. And in the very first film that I had, I put up if you want, stay in touch, kind of a thing. Give us your email, and we caught 4,500 names. We captured them, and I didn't know what to do with them for about a year. And then we came up with the idea to have a weekly or to send out email called Thinker Updates, because our company's called Thinking Man Films. And so we sent out these Thinker Updates. In fact, if people would like to go and see what it looks like, go to patternsofevidence.com and you can sign up for a Thinker Update. You'll see them right there on the main page.
Okay.
If you have a movie, you've got to have a place where people can, be connected to it. And that is where we chose to put all of our communication on that website. And that web page then is where we give the updates so that we can continue to build it. It's the focal point where you're going to tell everybody what's happening. And if you're going to do this, you're going to want to find things that are important so people follow you. Look at there's a series, The Chosen, and they've done a really good job of constantly communicating with people what's happening, where they're going, what the next goal is, or whatever. And as a filmmaker, and I always said that, like for myself, I was a wannabe filmmaker, and you're constantly wanting to do this. So you've got to figure out, well, what am I going to do? If you make a film, then do you have an audience that's interested in it? And so there's lots of ways to try to get to that place where you are trying to make a film. And if you're trying to raise money for a film, let's say you've got a $50,000 budget or something, where is that going to come from? Sometimes, most likely they come from friends and relatives that are interested in, depending on what you've got. The other thing that's important is to create a trailer or to create a scene from the movie. And you're gathering all these emails. You're keeping in touch with people. Email, I like. Texting is good, really good. It's some form of, I know the person, I got their name. They're going to be a supporter. They're either going to buy the film, or they're going to support the film, or they're going to help tell people about the film. That becomes your world of people that will help you with that. And so, as a filmmaker, as anybody who's doing this right now, you have to basically do three things. You have to act like a studio. You have to raise the money, you have to produce the film, and you have to market the film. And until you get to the level where people pay attention to you, you're going to be responsible for all those three things. And once you market the film, you're going to have to basically nurture the film. You're going to basically say, this film, I'm going to put it in these festivals, and I'm going to keep promoting it, and I'm going to try to find a home for it. I believe that that the Little House on the Prairie filmmaker is probably where we're at this time. And what I mean by that is that you're going to have to go out into the wilderness of this world. You're going to have to find a way to raise your own support, and like I said, friends or family or savings or however, and make it for as little as you can. You produce a film that's worthy of people wanting to watch it. Throughout that whole time of producing it, you're going to have to basically uh, tell the story from the actor's point of view, all the behind the scenes stuff, capture all those interesting um, scenes, photograph them in ways that are both horizontal and vertical because of certain things like, some things you're going to want to film this way and some things you're going to want to film this way. And you might film two of them side by side. So, get them both at the same time.
Right.
That's one idea. But the whole point of this is that I always told my staff and my people, no one's coming to help us. I mean, we're in this on our own. We're the little house on the prairie. You're the little micro studio on the prairie that you're going to have to figure this out. And because you just worked with a couple of different independent filmmakers. There's no studio there to tell you what to do, but there's no studio to tell you what you can't do either. You have total freedom to go and make this piece of art that you want. And then you have total freedom to go and sell it and market it. But there's a lot of people who only enjoy the making of the film and they just hate the other part of it. Well, I don't know what to say to those people because I understand that. But the other part of what I'd say is that you're going to have to grow up because a lot of people only make one film then because they don't have repeat. Or the other thing, too, is you have to be careful what kind of film you're going to make. You better make a film that is worth people seeing. I mean, if you want to make avant-garde films or make films, whatever kind of films you make, is it commercial or is it personal? It depends. What is your goal for making that film? But a number of people need to take whatever dollars they made for that first film and recycle it into the next film. So if you had a film that cost you, let's say, $25,000 to make because this was whatever it is. And by the way, I would say that there's a lot of actors and there's a lot of crew people. There's a lot of different people that if you could find a team that all had something to gain by being in a production, like an actress who's never really acted in a film gets to be in your film. Well, I don't see paying those people because everyone has something to gain. The actress needs, because if paying it causes the production not to happen, you have to find a way that everyone can win, win, win. And if you can do that and keep your expenses all the way down, you're going to have to pay for food, you're going to have to pay for insurance, you're going to have to pay for a variety of things that you have to pay for. You might have to pay for, police to block off a street or whatever it might be. But the things that you don't have to pay for, or if you're going to pay for, make it, gas, or make it all those kinds of things that everyone's working together in, that make this possible. Because most of these times we're not at that. Just skip the idea of what Hollywood's doing. You're going to have to think completely like a pioneer, and that's exactly what you have to do. You have to be very, very creative, and you then have the opportunity to create a very, very creative and beautiful film. That then becomes more like the poetry of the filmmaker and the people and the talent in front of the film. And so it's not, at the end of the day, how much you spent on it. It's really how much impact and how far did it get out and how good is this film? Is this film worthy of people watching? Do they want to watch it? Are they interested in watching it? And then if you want to do it, then do you have something that you can repeat? So you have to always pick projects that you think are going to have, you're either really passionate about. And I know there's some people they're passionate, they make certain films, but not a lot of other people are passionate to watch it. So you have to ask, am I making this film, and what are the reasons for making this film? And then you just make the best film you can make, and then you try to get out there and make it happen.
So I was kind of interested in hearing, obviously you've done your own Patterns of Evidence series, and now you've done the Churches of Revelation. Were there any either unique challenges or differences you found between distributing documentaries that you yourself made and distributing films that a different filmmaker made?
I think that when you curate an audience, when you're trying to get an audience, what you're going to be doing is you're endorsing. So the difference is they know what you do and how you do it, but if you bring somebody else, they're going to do it differently. And you're just saying, I want to introduce you to something different, and that is um, what I did. And I believe that it was important, though, and that it helps to fill an area that I'm not going to do in this whole side of it. I don't see doing it now. I've got so much that I think I need to do in a different area of storytelling. And I think the other thing too is that try and understand what it's going to cost to market something. And what we find is that if we don't market it, it doesn't sell at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just because somebody, and this is a cautionary note for everybody, is that you get excited because somebody puts you on their platform, and it doesn't mean that you're going to have any sales at all, because the platform might have hundreds or 1,000 other titles. It's a subscription channel or whatever, and I tend to like pay-per-view, video on demand. I think it would be VOD, as opposed to SOD. But because it just depends, because there's no promotion behind it.
Right.
When we go and sell direct. The difference is we put promotion behind it. And then we get response. So you just there's so many things for people to look at and to do. It's harder for them, and I think the reason why streaming channels that might take a film, they like it. They like shorter versions because they can fail quickly, or people don't. Some people look at something. I don't know if that was correct to say fail quickly, but people look at a film and they go, "How long is that? 2 hours? Oh, I don't know if I want to watch that for 2 hours. I got the whole evening. I might want to watch something else." But if they go, "Oh, it's 20 minutes," they watch the first one, and then they go, "Oh, let's watch the next one," and then start binge watching the whole thing. That little temptation of watching something short is what opens the door for people to a film. That's the reason why I say, if you make a film, make a series, make videos for YouTube, make all the other kinds of videos that you need to make a podcast. You just do everything you can to get this web out. You have a website, capture all those people. Because if you're going to do that, you're going to want to basically keep building that relationship with a lot of an audience. And it's really about, building that following.
You mentioned earlier how you did, I forget which of the films, but you did it as a Fathom event. That's something, I mean, it seems like, a lot of independent filmmakers, I mean, even The Chosen, that's how they recently did their theatrical, was through Fathom. But I guess, what are maybe some things you've learned along the way that, like, if you're a filmmaker, you should consider these when trying to decide, is like doing a Fathom event right for your film or not?
Well, I think getting a following is expensive to try to, find. And so for people who don't have a following, they're going to have to spend money to find the audience and get the audience there. So there's that you use the word learning curve. Well, there's an audience curve as well. And that curve is really expensive in the beginning to try to get people to know about you. That's the reason, once they do know about you, you better not let them go. You've got to find a way to hang on to them. Why do they attach stars to films? Is because the star has already a bunch of followers. A director like Steven Spielberg, oh, he's got a new movie, I'll go see that movie because it's Steven Spielberg. He has a huge name awareness. And so it's important that once the film is shown, what has been accomplished. And the film, has it made the film famous? Because you're going to get a lot of, and the reason why people choose to do, let's say, a theatrical release is because news outlets and podcasts and radio shows, if it's of a subject matter that they're interested in, will promote it because it's something to promote, because everyone across the nation can get into it. And it's a great focus. Fathom event is a very targeted, like here it is for a day, or here it is for 2 days, or here it is for a week. You don't have to spend weeks and weeks worth of advertising. You can focus an audience really closely into it. So if you have a subject or a star or something that makes this noteworthy, that'll help. But some of the films that we've done, I've just tried to build on that, that following, that audience, and tried to get people out to the theater to see it. And we kind of went right through the COVID. I mean, we had a couple films, and then COVID came, and then we had to kind of go into just releasing online for film, one of our films. And you have to decide, is this film have enough of a following, or how much will it cost me to get people into the theater?
Right.
And a lot of films, you either have to have a lot of money, or and the hard part lately, I think, is that depending on the subject matter, Facebook and other social media platforms aren't working for us like they were.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder to get people. That's the reason why. And the other factor is, that's why I would say you need to have you need to have a connection with the person, not use a filtering platform like a Facebook, because we have over like 200,000 followers on Facebook, but we can't reach them. We can only reach a small group of them because they don't let us reach them unless we spend a lot of money. And you're like, okay, well, is the money to reach those followers going to sell tickets, and can we keep track of that? And so, as a filmmaker, I would study direct to consumer marketing a lot. What I would say is that you need to think like, how do I raise money? How do I, be a good filmmaker? And I also need to be a good distributor, because you're most likely not going to have any of those helps. You need to broaden the visionary, why this is an important film to help me make. And you're selling that to everybody, right? To the cast, to the crew, to your uncle and aunt. My wife's aunt put money into my first film. She forgave me because I never paid her back. It wasn't a lot of money, but I never got another Christmas gift after that. She'd given them all to me. But God bless her. She got me started. And I think she'd be pretty happy today to see what happened with it. How that opened doors. That got me my first job at an ad agency. So that first film that was really, really hard, it took a year to make and put all this effort into it, opened the door for me to move to the next level. And that's what some of these films will do. Sometimes it's important to focus on a 20-minute film, focus on some kind of short or something to build things. Making a feature film is really, really difficult. It might be that you've got a series of shorts that actually become a series for things. And I'm not sure who I'm all talking to, but if there are a lot of young filmmakers, you're still in that phase. From the time I felt like I wanted to be a filmmaker, which is when I was 19 years old, till the time I actually started making films. I made my first real film when I was probably 27.
Okay.
And it was like an hour-long feature documentary that got me the job. And then I made lots of TV commercials through my 30s, and I made lots of videos for different things, making those kinds of learning, a lot of learning. And then eventually, when I was in my 40s, I was able to start to get to an opportunity where I started to make TV specials. And I think another thing that would really be important is to look at goal setting. I just got a piece of paper here, but I mean, write your goals on a sheet of paper and visit them and say, and so I had written a goal. I want to make a national TV special.
Okay.
And I did. It was pretty remarkable that I actually got this this special created, the way it came about. It was on a subject matter that one of my relatives was interested in, and we got it on the NBC. And it was like, wow. But I joined somebody else, just like I was able to get the subject. It was on the Bible Code. It was a special, and I didn't know how to make a special, but I was a co-producer.
Mm-hmm.
And I got onto it. And I did a couple like that. Then I made another one called Jesus, Divine, or Da Vinci. And what was funny about that film is that there was a movie, The Da Vinci Code, that came out. And I just felt like I knew that the Da Vinci Code was not true at all, that it was lying about the Bible, it was lying about Jesus. And it really bothered me. And I just felt for about a month that I needed to do something. And then when another month came along, and I told this guy, I said, I really feel like I should make this film about the Da Vinci Code, but I don't know how I'm going to do it and how I can afford to do it and where I'll get, And so, but I knew a man who is a professor who had actually talked about the credibility of the scriptures and talked about Jesus. And I contacted him and I said, would you be open to doing this film? And he goes, so he prayed about it with his wife, and he came back and said, yes, I would. And so I was able to film him. But before I actually made the film, this fellow who was distributing to Christian bookstores, he was like, hey, I think I could sell this for you, but I need a name. And so I went to bed, I prayed about it, and I woke up in the morning with this name, Jesus, Divine or Da Vinci? ? So, and I basically came back and told him what it was, the name, and he goes, I love it. And he goes, I'll call you back. And he calls me back and says, hey, I got an order for 1,000 copies. By the end of the day, I had an order for 3,000 copies. And then I got so I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to have to do this. Now I have to do this. And then it came to me, well, how do I do it? And I thought, well, what if I go to coffee shops and I interview people telling me about the Da Vinci Code? And what I did is I bought coffee cards for cards to get coffee, so $25. And so I bought 10 of them. So for $250, and I had a release, I went to the coffee shops around here, just like not far away. And I said, hey, I'm making a documentary. Have you seen the movie Da Vinci Code? And he goes, yeah, I've seen it. I said, could I ask you some questions about it? And we sat down, I lit it, and I said, I'll give you a $25 coffee card. And they signed the release. And then I just tell me what happened in this story. And I went through, and then finally, towards the very last question was, who is Jesus? Is he divine or Da Vinci? And that meant, is he this, like the Da Vinci Code, or divine? And then I had all the biblical archaeological stuff with that other interview. So and then I built a set, and I had all these candles and two guys. I didn't burn the place down, but it was pretty cool. And I made this TV special, and I probably spent maybe no more than $5,000 to make a national TV special. $25, $250 for the coffee cards. I worked with this, with this one scholar, and then I built the set, and then I cut it all together, the music, packaged it, and sold it to TBN. Mm-hmm. And so it was really, really successful in that regard. But I was always at that place where I thought, I don't know if I can do this. Am I going to do it? But finally, when I got to that name, so you can pray and ask God, okay, what am I going to do? How should I do this? And there's a verse in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. It says, for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works. And making films, if you have this type of calling, is to make a good work. And then it says here, which God prepared in advance for us to do. So there are good works that God has prepared for all of us to do in advance. So before you were ever around, God had something that he wanted you to do. And I think that's a wonderful verse, Ephesians 2:10, for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Amazing. And I look back on a lot of the films that I've done, And it's like all these different films, I mean, I look at it and go, how did that all happen? Well, God prepared in advance for me. And there are times when I've
Mhm.
just felt really like, oh, is this going to happen? You have to have faith. You have to believe and trust. And you have to look at the Bible because I struggle. As many films as I've made, I still battle the whole issue of faith. Do I believe the Lord's going to help me with this next project and with this? I mean, and I feel ashamed of myself at times, but I want to tell everybody that you have to just continue to wake up and do the basic things. And if God has projects for you, make a list. Get serious about it. Pray about it. Start taking steps to do it, even if they're little baby steps. And that's what I've done, and it works. You want to make sure, though, that you're doing projects that are truly the ones that God's called you to. That are not projects that are just a distraction from what you should be doing. And that's one thing I would say is make sure it's something that you'd be pleased and feel like it's really worth the commitment to spend the time. I'm not saying you can't do some things that are, that will give you an insight or give you some experience or whatever. But as you work towards, okay, what are the films that I want to be attached to me? You want to make sure that you want to do the ones that are right. And think like a studio, because as a filmmaker, you're going to own that film for the rest of your life.
Yes.
And what are you going to do with it?
I did have just one other question I was interested to hear your thoughts on. And that is just like, what advice would you give for like balancing working on multiple projects at a time?
Well, that's a great question. I struggle with that. I think a lot of people do. What I did early on was that I basically had divided my week into different parts. So Mondays was management. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday were production. Fridays was sales. And then I would sometimes work on Saturdays, and then Sundays was my time off. What my wife would say is if I worked on Saturday, I was so tired that I didn't do a whole lot on Sunday except trying to recuperate. So now I've tried to basically, I'm in another season where I've got to determine how do I manage my time. And because we've got a lot of projects that are in different phases. Like I jumped out of an edit session. I edit online, so right now I've got microphone here. I've got three monitors. There's a long, tall monitor for script. Then I've got my edit monitor, and then I've got another monitor down here that I put Keyflow, a library, and so. It's just a daily discipline, but not only that, but there's physical health and spiritual wellness. So I don't have what my goal is to spend time in prayer in the morning, and then I can also go to the health club. I'm talking idealistically here, but I haven't been to the health club for a long time because I was working a lot on weekends. But I have gone now. I started going back again because sitting like this gets you all tight. And if you're a filmmaker, if you're filming, like I would go on film shoots and everything, you're still hauling around stuff and you're carrying it on your shoulders. You're doing all that. So I found that just regular exercise, going through or doing something, even something called a burpee. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but that's what we had in high school and junior high. Burpees with push-ups, sit-ups, things to basically loosen up your shoulders and neck, from all this, because I'm here for like 8 hours, working. So on one side, it's balancing out the spiritual. And so my thinking is pray in the morning, have a prayer time in the morning, prayer time, if I can, in around noon, and prayer before I go to bed with my wife. But it's very specific times like that. And then, reading. I'm trying to spend more time in the evening reading books that I feel are going to be valuable to me, and feeding on the right kinds of things. I find when I look at, I'm talking about everything outside of how do I restore myself. I play music now. I'm in a band, and I had been in bands for a long time, and I think that it's been more helpful for me to be involved with that, because it gives me something else to do besides always thinking about all these different things they're doing. But once again, I guess the balance would be also to try to find people that are more skilled at some of the duties, if you can, and find either, it's like you look at the Irwin brothers or the Kendrick brothers. There's three Kendrick brothers, there's two Irwin brothers,
Yeah.
and then I just met the Wild brothers. There's four of them. I don't know if you know the Wild brothers, but so they can really divvy out the duties to different people. Well, you got to find some other brothers that, and I'm not saying that you should be I don't necessarily agree with partnerships, because somebody has to make decisions at the end of the day. Someone has to be the director or the decision maker. But find help, and I try to find help, and then you try to administrate it. I'm a creative, and not necessarily a manager. I think I'm best in development and creative and that side of things. So in summary, it would be you have to keep your physical and spiritual well-being. And then I've decided not to work on weekends unless I really, really have to, because that's time when I really need to spend with my family. I'm getting older, and I've got kids and grandkids, and I'm trying to spend more time and feeling more free. Because as much as you desire to be in this business, it can become really, really over. It just starts to just eat up all your time, and you're just consumed by it. So you've got to find a set way to say, okay, I might work maybe 50 hours, or, when I get to the 50, 60 hour mark, it gets to be a little bit much, but you can waste a lot of time by, so if you can get started earlier in your day and try to find disciplines to communicate, this is my communication time. And then this is my editing time. And then this is my time I need to do other things. Now I'm telling you stuff that I struggle with all the time, trying to basically run several companies and a foundation. I'm working hard. And so I don't always practice what I preach, but I know that is what is helpful. I have been practicing not looking at business too much at night and not doing it on the weekends. I say that this last weekend was the first time I actually said, I think I need to catch up, because by the end of the year, I want to take a whole week off. I like taking the week off between Christmas and New Year's and just giving everybody that time, just to have it as downtime.
Yes.
So I think that, my wife is a big list keeper, and I do now have a new business manager, and he is basically saying, let's get everything on a list, and that frees up your mind. So I've got to work towards that, getting that stuff on the list. And I think for anybody who's listening that's aspiring to do this, we go back to for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. And if you don't know Jesus Christ, I'd also say that he is. We all believe as followers of Christ that he came for us and to redeem our lives, and that could be that missing part in someone's life to come to know him, and so that's the big adventure.
And on that note, we are going to wrap up this episode of the Producer Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the Producer Podcast, and thanks for listening.